Je vais commencer et après je vous donne la parole. C'est bon, Laura? Bonjour à tous. Bonjour. Nous sommes heureux d'accueillir aujourd'hui les intervenants et les participants à notre événement que nous organisons avec le soutien fort appréciable de GIZ, l'Agence de coopération internationale allemande, qui accompagne nos activités maintenant depuis 2018 dans le domaine du commerce et de l'emploi. Notre réunion aujourd'hui a pour titre et objectif le renforcement du lien innovation-employabilité en Méditerranée. Comme vous le savez très bien, tout au long de cette année, nous célébrons le 25e anniversaire du processus de Barcelone. Et dans ce cadre-là, s'est tenu la semaine dernière virtuellement, mais de façon hybride également, plusieurs réunions, parmi lesquelles le Forum régional de l'UfM. Tout au long de ces activités, ou plutôt de ces festivités, je dirais, les intervenants et les participants qui ont été des ministres des Affaires étrangères, des représentants de la Commission européenne ou de la société civile, ont tous mis en avant l'importance de la jeunesse méditerranéenne et la nécessité d'accroître les chances de cette jeunesse pour accéder à l'éducation et à l'emploi. Dans notre région, le taux de chômage reste encore élevé chez les jeunes. Une des causes de cela est l'inadéquation des compétences des jeunes diplômés au monde du travail. C'est pour cela l'initiative Renforcer le lien innovation-employabilité en Méditerranée, impulsée par l'UfM et avec l'aide du GIZ, vise à combler cette brèche. Il s'agit d'identifier les bonnes pratiques disponibles dans la région pour les disséminer et les pistes possibles pour promouvoir le dialogue entre les universités, l'industrie et les décideurs politiques. Au cœur de ce dialogue, des thématiques comme le développement des soft skills et des compétences numériques et entrepreneuriales restent centrales. L'objectif de ce temps d'échange est de souligner le rôle des universités et des centres de recherche comme moteur de croissance dans la région à travers le dialogue avec le monde de l'entreprise. En effet, c'est à travers ces partenariats universités-entreprises que l'on peut promouvoir l'innovation et l'employabilité des étudiants et des chercheurs. Nous aurons aujourd'hui le privilège d'échanger sur la manière d'accroître la connexion entre universités et entreprises dans notre région avec le président de la Fondation Plima, professeur Angelo Riccoboni. Nous parlera du rôle des partenariats universités-entreprises après la pandémie et une table ronde sur l'innovation et l'employabilité avec le programme Conception X visant à transformer la prochaine génération de chercheurs scientifiques en fondateurs de leur propre entreprise, du réseau d'universités Unimed, avec également BusinessMed, qui est l'Union méditerranéenne des confédérations d'entreprises. Aujourd'hui, nous présenterons aussi un nouveau manuel à destination des universités, de l'industrie et des décideurs politiques, intitulé « Renforcer le lien innovation-employabilité en Méditerranée », que vous êtes invités à télécharger sur le site Internet de l'UfM et à l'utiliser sans modération. Nous espérons que cette publication soit utile et qu'elle inspirera aussi bien les universités que les entreprises et les pouvoirs publics. Je souhaite donc que le partage d'expériences et de perspectives soit fructueux et je passe la parole à son Excellence, Monsieur le secrétaire général de l'UfM, Monsieur Nasser Kemel, qui, comme toujours, répond avec grand enthousiasme à nos sollicitations d'appui et de soutien. Monsieur le secrétaire général.
Merci Ataf. Merci à tous. Dear speakers, colleagues and friends, actually, I'd like to welcome all of you to our event today, the event that we are organizing here at the UfM with, of course, the support of GIZ, which, as Ataf explained, aims to underscore the role of university and research center as indispensable and inescapable driver of growth in the Euro-Mediterranean region. I'm sure you know much better than me how university and research centers are the nerve centers playing home to the bright and disruptive sparks of innovation in our society. They underpin the professional, what's happening? The camera is changing. It's okay. They underpin the professional and personal development of the single most precious resource we have in our region, a young, highly educated population. They are our most precious resource. Higher education institutions cover, therefore, an extremely crucial role that needs to be continuously innovated in order to answer newly arising challenges and support the development of our societies. Today, we are, or to be more precise, you are going to discuss how to set up dialogue on the role on innovation and employability, which is crucial to unlocking our region's true potential. You are also going to discuss with high-level and distinguished speakers how to connect academia and business in our region through what we call the triple HELIX. We celebrate this year, as Ataf mentioned, our 25th anniversary, the anniversary of the Barcelona process, which stated that science and technology have a significant influence on socio-economic development of the Euromed region. Just last week, we met here in Barcelona, the co-presidency, Spain and UfM, and all the other Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the UfM region. And in the communique issued after the meeting, we reiterated our commitment to supporting research, innovation, and the development of employment opportunities for our youth. These are not just words intended to remember or to recite previous and prior commitments, but a reflection on the agenda for the future of our region, a region that wants to be innovative, green, and digital. So we need to put innovation ecosystem at the heart of our region. A question could come naturally: why innovation and employability in the Mediterranean? Well, while education alone cannot solve all issues and problems, it has always been a key part of any solution for global challenges. Supporting employability means betting on the future of young graduates and researchers in a region where 40% of our population is under the age of 25. We must seek to exploit this resource, allowing our young people to pursue their ambitions and support growth through their talents. The need for a quick and strong recovery in the face of the impact caused, or the damage actually caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, further highlights the case for investing as much as we can in research centers, where innovation is nurtured, where ideas are made reality, and where even life-saving vaccines can be developed at record pace. Many challenges still hinder the full achievement of this goal. We know the Mediterranean region is experiencing a record number of unemployment among its youth, up to 25%, and in some countries it's even well above that percentage. With clear gender imbalances, we know that young women, although they made remarkable progress in educational attainment, their unemployment rates in the region are almost double those of young men. One of the obstacles to a smooth transition from academia to business is the breach that separates them. The gap is often a barrier that prevents the potential of our young, bright minds to be fully realized. Skill mismatch remains a significant barrier to hire in our region. Even more worryingly, higher unemployment rate befall graduates more than those without higher education qualification. This is why we need to expand dialogue on the many solutions that are already being pursued by many hardworking stakeholders. Answering this regional need for dialogue on action that can be promoted, improved, and expanded, the UfM has promoted this initiative that we are calling Reinforcing the Innovation Employability Nexus in the Mediterranean, where we aim together to analyze some best practices available and possible ways forward for bridging dialogue between academia, industry, and policymakers. While not exhaustive, this mapping exercise aims to contribute to the dialogue for innovating our economy and employing our youth. For instance, this means focusing on soft and digital skill as a collective concern by academia, and not only academia, industry and governments. An example is given by, of course, the UfM labeled projects Med New Chance, which for years has supported skill development in our region. Academia can also reflect more clearly on adapting their curricula, their pedagogy, and even their physical spaces towards entrepreneurial teaching and learning, thus providing young people with the tools to enable them to create a social enterprise or a business. Internationalization is also one of the most important factors in determining quality of education. And progress in employability can also be driven by academic mobility. Strongly believing in mobility across our shores, we at the UfM Secretariat has for years, or have for years, supported the project Homers based on Mediterranean internships and is promoting now a new study on mobility being carried out by UNIMED. And we're hoping and dreaming of a real big, well-funded Erasmus or Mediterranean Erasmus for our region. We have identified also many paths that can be taken in order to reinforce career opportunity in the region and unlock its true potential. While there are no one-size-fits-all solution, any reflection will need to be taken with a partnership approach and a concerted effort to step up dialogue on innovation and employability. Ladies and gentlemen, our work is enriched by the consultation process with international organizations, universities and their networks, and representatives from the business sector. All can be inscribed within the activity of our organization in the field of higher education and research. That's why I want, and I should, and I feel happy to thank the support of the many representatives from the UfM regional platforms on research and innovation, which has seen its activity grow stronger and stronger during the last year. And that is going to celebrate 25 years of cooperation on research and innovation this very month on the 10th of December. I will therefore leave the floor to this high-level discussion with the distinguished experts on the field, especially the chair of PRIMA, my very dear friend, Professor Ricaboni, which brings his vast expertise, present and previous, and we thank also all those that have participated in the previous steering committee and also those who participated in the questionnaire and in the long efforts for leading this publication. This is a collective effort, I mean the publication, and we thank you for your hard work and many inputs. We have now to take stock from it, share it among those that wish to get more involved in the academia-business dialogue, and chart our way forward. Your discussion here today will definitely help us understand the most appropriate ways here at the Union for the Mediterranean. We aim to support all those stakeholders involved who wishes to make their voices heard as we bring the worlds of academia and work closer together by mapping and detailing examples and initiatives of best practices to be replicated, connected, and grown. Finally, I look forward to the discussion that you will be having today and cordially invite you to attend our next event on the impact of science diplomacy in the region that will be taking place in just a few days on the 15th of December. Thank you very much for your patience, and I wish you a very successful meeting.
Merci, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, pour votre discours qui montre encore une fois que nos engagements et nos tâches sont grandes, mais grâce à nos partenaires et à nos stakeholders, je crois qu'on arrivera à relever tous ces défis-là pour notre jeunesse méditerranéenne. Et comme je l'ai dit au début, notre réunion aujourd'hui et la publication sur l'entrepreneuriat et l'université n'auraient pas pu vu le jour sans l'appui de notre partenaire GIZ qui a cru à l'UPM et qui nous a soutenus maintenant depuis 2 ans et qui continue à nous soutenir. Je vous passe la parole à mon très cher collègue Johannes, qui est le directeur du bureau GIZ à l'UPM. Johannes, vous avez la parole.
Yes, thank you very much. And a warm welcome also from my side. And thank you, UfM, for the opportunity to say a couple of words on behalf of the German Development Agency, which is supporting this UfM initiative and also the UfM Secretariat in general since 2018, indeed. One of the core topics of our collaboration is the high unemployment in the southern and eastern Mediterranean region, especially for young people and young women in particular. And this is because the high unemployment is one of the greatest risks for the Mediterranean region, most certainly. The negative consequences range from the effects on the life and the health of young people, all the way to the negative impact on communities and even whole economies, including a lower economic growth and lower productivity, and even an increased risk of radicalization and political unrest. But youth unemployment does not only bring a huge range of social and economic risks for the whole region, it is also the region's greatest waste of potential. And a striking proof of this wasted potential is the fact that 25% of the young graduates in many countries of the region are unemployed, as we've already heard from the Secretary General. And this is actually the highest level of unemployment among higher education graduates of any region in the world. And so I guess we could, or I guess we wish we could blame the COVID pandemic for these numbers, but the COVID pandemic really has only exacerbated already existing challenges for the employment markets in the region. And it is well known that the gap between skills acquired by graduates and the skills required by businesses is one of the main reasons for the persisting employment challenges in the Mediterranean. And a particular challenge in many countries of the Mediterranean region is, as we've already heard from the Secretary General, is that a higher level of education does not guarantee better employment prospects. Instead, we are facing a sort of education employment paradox in which a higher level of education actually increases the likelihood to be unemployed after graduation. So it is obvious that we really have to tackle some structural problems, and there is certainly an urgency for governments, universities, research, and businesses in the region to take informed decisions to enhance their cooperation. And well, in order to take informed decisions, we need information that is up to date and comprehensive. And this is exactly what the handbook that will be presented today is providing. And I must say, I'm really impressed by this publication because it exemplifies best practices such as successful career services at universities, as well as new models for internships, but also more challenging concepts such as collaborative doctorates and better mobility of students. And the handbook explains existing policy tools and provides recommendations to enhance the employability of graduates and researchers. And the handbook also is not only comprehensive, but also easy to read. It is to the point. I find it very well organized and very interesting. So whether you are a policymaker, whether you're from academia or from the private sector, or whether you are looking for quick facts, or you want to dive deeper into detail, or whether you are interested in conceptual or rather practical guidance, I think this handbook will be a fantastic resource and can really instruct a better cooperation between governments, academia, and industry. So from my side, congratulations and a huge thank you to the authors and everybody involved. And we are very much looking forward to seeing this handbook put into use in 2021 when this UfM initiative will bring together stakeholders in 2 national trainings and also 1 regional seminar in order to reinforce the innovation employability nexus in the whole UfM region. Thank you very much, and I give the floor back to the UfM.
Merci, merci Johannes. Chaque fois, les collègues me rappellent que je dois dire ça, mais j'oublie de le dire. Mais je crois que vous le savez déjà qu'il y a le service d'interprétation en arabe, français et anglais également. Merci encore Johannes pour l'appui de GIZ et félicitations, je crois, à nous tous, à vous également parce que vous avez accompagné la publication et l'effort des experts tout au long de la rédaction de cette publication. Sans tarder, et comme a dit monsieur le secrétaire général, nous sommes également aujourd'hui honorés par la présence du professeur Angelo Riccaboni. Professeur Riccaboni est président de la Fondation Prima, ancien recteur de l'Université Siena, ancien président de la Fondation des recteurs italiens, qui va nous parler aujourd'hui de Academia Business and its role after the pandemic. Professeur Riccaboni, vous avez la parole. Merci.
Good morning, everybody, and I hope you can hear me. So I would like to start, first of all, thanking my dear friend Nasser Kamel for the invitation to this very important panel and initiative. I would like to thank UfM and GIZ for this very interesting contribution to a very important topic as the nexus between innovation and employability. I think that the leadership of UfM and Nasser Kamel in particular in tackling these issues is clear, and really on behalf of everybody I would like to thank him and UfM for what they are doing. Also, congratulations for the publication. It's very important, very interesting, dealing with a very important issue, and I would like to spend a few words about the issue of the relationship between universities and business based upon my experience, but I would like to focus more on a recommendation and solutions more than the general framework, because I think it's important to be concrete when we talk about these issues. So I hope you don't mind if I share with you my presentation, and I hope you can read it. The issue that I'm dealing with is the academia business relationship, its role after the pandemic. We are dealing with something called third mission. And what is third mission? We all know basically, it means that higher education institutions have relationships with society through providing services, fostering entrepreneurship and innovation, acting for socioeconomic development, both at the local and regional level. So this is what we tend to define as the third mission. So my first question is really this one third? Because you have research, you have teaching, now we have these activities called third. Are we sure that these should be considered as in the hierarchy after the others? So even the denomination of these activities, I would be a little bit doubtful if it is correct to call them these activities as third. Furthermore, now we have to deal with the issue of sustainability. We all know that the Mediterranean area is the most vulnerable area in the world after the Arctic in terms of consequences of climate change. So sustainability is a key issue for us as Mediterranean people. There are experts who suggest that there should be a fourth mission. I would integrate these into the other three, but that is a topic we are discussing. So this is also an issue that I leave to the panel. In terms of what is the third mission. This is a classification that I hope that you agree with me. I don't go to the details, of course, but I would like to highlight that definitely you have a part which is called knowledge and technology transfer. Sometimes it's called technology transfer. Sometimes it's called knowledge exchange. I like very much knowledge exchange because it gives the idea that you have an exchange between the world of research, innovation, and the business. So you have here co-creation, you have communication of a new technology, you have personal transfer, you have internships. So what usually is under the umbrella of TT, technology transfer, or KE, knowledge exchange. But we need to be clear that besides it, you have other activities. In particular, you have education, further education, long life learning, which is part of the same umbrella, part of the same sector. So we need also to include this part, which means, for instance, BSc or even PhD programs for executives, for people working within a business. You have specific certificates of studies. You have MOOCs, massive open online courses. So when we talk about third mission, we need to also consider this part. Then you have also something that is more recent in terms of success or relevance, which is given, which is societal engagement. We need to make citizens part of our activities. We need to engage them. We need to involve them. So this is something that is recent, but it's very important. I'll give you also some examples. Science festivals, nights of sciences. In Europe, there is this program called Bright, and every year, October, November, you have really cities full of activities by our researchers along the streets. Not this year, of course, but it is something that is very, very important to make citizens, to make taxpayers aware of what universities are doing. And that is something that also I would like to highlight, because this part of societal engagement is becoming more and more relevant. So this is a classification that is very, very common, like also the benefits. I don't spend time on this. We have, of course, the possibility to generate new ideas, to generate jobs. And this is also the key issue today at this important initiative, the nexus between innovation and employability. So if universities, higher education institutions work more and more closely with the society or with business, new ideas can go to the business, new jobs can be created, and even new companies. As I said before, all the movement of new spin-offs, startups is part of this rhetoric, of this narrative. But also you can do better in terms of traditional missions, which is research and teaching. So it is my experience, it is the experience of everybody. I mean, if you go to a firm, you know the firm, then when you teach, I teach management, it is much better for your teaching, for your effectiveness. But in general, for universities, you can find new ways of proposing learning modes, and you can facilitate graduates to find a job. And that is very, very important. So these are the benefits that have been around for some times, and I don't want to spend time on it. I will say a few words more on some examples which are characterizing also the Italian experience. For instance, I mentioned the Bright, the Night of Researchers, which is a European initiative, but also the PhD Talents, which was important funding of given to enterprises which were hiring doctoral students with a project which was cut into the firm activities. So it was a way for the government to give doctoral students some part of the salary to work in a company. It was very successful. we have an observatory which cares of the relationship between the universities and enterprises, which I chair. And every year we have a report saying what is going on. It is important to show also what universities are doing, because very often universities are doing very nice things. Often our interlocutors, our stakeholders don't know it. So we need also communicate what we are doing. PRIMA, as you know, the most ambitious science diplomacy initiative in the Mediterranean, is not concerned with the transfer of knowledge into companies. We stopped a little bit before, but we have created a PRIMA observatory on innovation to give value, to give relevance, to valorize nice experiences of our researchers or the researchers involved in our projects with companies, with business. It is very important to give visibility to what our researchers are doing. It is important also to give visibility to companies which, through innovation, succeed. So these are just a few examples of initiatives where we are involved, and this helps to focus on suggestions, which is my main part. So we talk about COVID-19 scenario. Unfortunately, we cannot say yet post-COVID scenario. What we can say is that universities are empty, unfortunately, but they are not closed. They are very active. And we are dealing with many challenges, which are mostly new and unexpected. For instance, we were brought into strong digitalization, which is something that is changing the way we are teaching. But also what is happening is that because of COVID, competencies, knowledge has become important again. I mean, we spent some years when competencies and knowledge was considered not that important. Now we feel that without competencies, without knowledge, you cannot tackle the issues, for instance, in terms of new treatments and possible vaccines. Also, the issue of open science has become even more important because we know that all information about the virus are shared very openly, as many other things. So it has been a boost to the concept of open science. Unfortunately, in the new scenario, there is also some loss of funding. However, what is relevant for this initiative today is that technological, social, and organizational innovation are considered at the core of the Build Back Better, so to the start after the crisis. So what this means, we need to have stronger relationships with industry and government, and we need, as a university, to demonstrate that we can contribute to build back better. We can give a contribution for the future of our society. So this is the core. As Nasser said very well, there is a debate about third mission and relationships between universities and business. But, and I would like to present this but, because this is the core of the issue, because we need to work in this direction, but we need to learn from our experience. First, features of local economic context matter. There's not one fits all solution. In the Mediterranean, we have a small, medium-sized enterprises. We don't have large companies. So we need to find solutions which are coherent with the characteristics of our context. Second, often we focus on knowledge exchange, on technical transfer, but we need to give more emphasis on civic engagement to promote critical thinking, but also on further education issues. So we cannot focus just on transfer of technologies. The two main discoveries after analysis we did in many universities in Europe when I was in the board of the International Association of Universities is that usually low or scarce results depends upon the fact that there is a low level of institutionalization of the third mission. we should have the third mission as a key part of our activities. It's not that if the director changes, everything changes. We need to have this as an institutionalized activity. It must become a strategic issue, not an episode. These 2 points are fundamental. If the third mission is not institutionalized, if the third mission is not strategic for the university, it will be difficult. Also because very often we don't have adequate financial human resources. You need to have proper skilled people to do it. Also, what I'm always promoting is that we need somebody in between business and academia. We as universities, we should have people, for instance, with a doctorate, able to talk both to business and to researchers. If they are divided, it's much more difficult. Last but not least, incentives. If in our universities, career is related only on bibliometrics, only on publishing, on international journals, the best people, the best researchers will not give time to the third mission. So the issue of incentives, career path, and rewarding system is a key issue. If you talk to researchers, they tell you that if you don't have this kind of change in our systems, it is very difficult in any country, So it is important to publish international journals, but this must not become obsession, must not become something which brings people out of the third mission. So these are the items that I bring to the attention. Last minute, as Nasser said, these issues can be tackled referring to partnerships and through dialogue. So as we know, number 17, SDG number 17 is key for the implementation of Agenda 2030. So we have, I hope that I highlighted how important are research innovation and knowledge exchange for employability and for sustainable development. But in order to go in this direction, we need more and more transnational partnerships. So I think that the role of GIZ is very welcome because it gives a boost in this direction. And UfM or UNIMED are organizations that can be facilitators of such partnerships. It is very important because the challenges in front of us are so important that without these facilitators, it's very, very difficult. So thanks to UfM and to UNIMED for what they are doing to promote partnerships. So what I said before, it is easier if we have partnerships. PRIMA is a huge partnership. We need to have more partnerships. We need to have links. We need to have the Mediterranean Erasmus program. The very last slide, again, in terms of proposals, I recommend to you the toolkits offered by the HEI initiative, which is a higher education initiative for innovation, which is which was launched by the European Commission. HE Innovate is the name of this initiative. HE Innovate is key to promote the relationship between universities and business. Every year there is a University Business Forum. In 2021, it will be held in Naples. At the end of the year, it will be on Agri-Food. So I take this opportunity to invite everybody to this forum, and this forum will be open to companies, to universities, to researchers, to innovators, and being a unique opportunity for sharing of experience. So that is a meeting that I would like to promote through UfM and through this network, because we have a very good opportunity to promote better university business relationships for the entire Mediterranean region. I would like to stop here and thank you very much for your patience and for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Riccaboni, for bringing your extensive experience, both from the Prima Foundation, but also from the Fondazione CRUI, all these associated initiatives, and new actions coming from the ground. And I think that you have correctly underlined that there is an evolution in the third mission, that there is a growing commitment from universities to reflect how they can contribute to the societies on which they are based, and how to reflect on the best way to working together. The keyword that I think that you mentioned is partnerships, and especially the SDG 17, and thank you also for bringing the discussion under the SDGs approach, of which we know that you are one of the main proponents in the Mediterranean. Interesting that you also mentioned some of the initiatives that are mentioned in our handbook. For instance, HI Innovate is one of the topics where everybody can know more by downloading our new publication. So thank you again. And now we move to the new, to the next phase in the agenda, which is the presentation of this publication. We will try not to take too much from the discussion. It's going to come from the round table, where we actually are going to see three very high-level speakers are going to discuss from different perspectives how to promote these interconnections between the triple helix that we mentioned. So just very much in brief, I wanted to first give a small introduction to this initiative, which is supported by GIZ. We prepared a very quick publication for presenting these initiatives, also for helping all the participants to understand how to join in this phase and the next one. Next. So why did we want to promote innovation and employability in the Mediterranean? First of all, because it's one of the topics more relevant for the 33 million students we have in our region, in the Euro-Mediterranean region, which means both the EU region and the Southern and Eastern Mediterranean. Actually, we know that for 32% of the enterprises, the gap between the training offered during the university studies and the requirements of business is one of the main barriers for hiring. This is especially important when we have a very young population in some areas of our region, and where we experience what we call the unemployment rates, which means that the more you study in our region, the more you are likely to be unemployed. In some areas, it's even 25%. Next. So we wanted to discuss it through a partnership approach, as was mentioned by Professor Riccaboni. So we put together a table with all stakeholders coming from ministries, for instance, ministries of labor, international institutions, chambers of commerce, universities and university networks. Some are also here today, but also some of what we call intermediate institutions. This kind of institution that facilitate the dialogue, the connective issues between the pillars of the HELIX. And this was also supported by the GIZ, but we also had some international institutions such as the CEAM and the Foundation for Science and Technology of Portugal. Next. So we developed, based on their inputs coming from this variety of stakeholders, some follow-up actions, always with the support of GIZ, which has foreseen, first of all, a consultatory process that was started in April. Even during the beginning of the pandemic, we were able to go ahead, thanks to the engagement from the stakeholder, that were able to transform the activities online. And we'll see a short publication that today we are presenting here, and actually can be downloaded if you go to the website of the Union for the Mediterranean, and go on publication, and you will find it. In the chat, you will also be able to find a direct link to it. And then for next year, for 2021, we will have 2 national training, 2 workshops, where we are going directly to, more specifically, into one of the topics, and the final regional conference, a seminar, where we envision to discuss the topic more at high level and reinforcing peer-to-peer exchanges and the capacities. Next. Just very briefly on the consultatory process that led to the publication here today. First of all, we prepared a survey that was shared with a wide variety of stakeholders coming from all the parts of the region, but also from different kinds of stakeholders, so both universities, decision makers, chambers of commerce, and so on. Next. We have then identified, thanks to the inputs that we received, some topics. So it was not our choice to decide on some topics instead of others, but it was based on the topics. Here we are seeing on employability, and here on innovation and entrepreneurship. And finally, we had some steering committees where, based on these inputs, we have invited a lot of participants. It was mentioned before by our Secretary General. We had the kind support of the UfM co-presidency, that is the European Commission, but also Jordan, but also the national focal points, that is the representatives of the ministries of research and innovation from all the UfM countries that have shared many inputs, but also the OECD, EBRD, SIAM, international institutions, university networks, which are one of our key partners at the Union for the Mediterranean. We have here UNIMED, we also have TETIS, we have GUNI and many more, MUNI, and the private sector, networks and startups. Then, based on these inputs, we have developed some face-to-face semi-structured interviews with the support of our consultants, and where we have more gone in depth into specific topics with some stakeholders that knew more deeply some of them. Then we have structured the meeting during the UNIMED week with universities. We have selected and passed to the steering committees for approval the selection of the topics we have developed. So here today we are bringing you this publication, which was based on this collective exercise. For next year, we are going then for a digital training that will be held in the first part of the year. And then, according, of course, to the conditions on the ground, we will have 2 national training workshops in the south and east of the Mediterranean, and 1 regional seminar where all will be invited more or less to attend both digitally or by presence, if possible, with the more UfM-wide approach. So without further ado, I will then leave the floor to the main author of our publication, Professor Dr. Nina Volles, who is a senior higher education advisor at the NGO on Paradigms, which has done together with Carlos Witzer an incredible work in collecting all these inputs we have received and detailing in a synthetic and clear way. All the information are already available publicly, so we have not invented anything, but the real exercise here is to try to put it in a communicational way, easy to access way, and try to promote it with the stakeholders that could get engaged more into connecting universities and business. So Nina, if you are connected with us, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes. Huh? Thank you. Thank you, Giuseppe. You can imagine that it's a super exciting moment as one of the authors of the handbook to be presenting it today. And I'm
sorry, Nina, we are not seeing your screen yet.
Oh, you're not seeing my screen yet. So that should be okay, right?
Now, yes.
Yes, okay. Good, always challenging when you work with 2 screens. So thank you, Giuseppe. Very exciting moment for us after 6 months of digging into practices, best practices around the Mediterranean. Let me try to shorten it a little bit. I think, before we delve into the publication, the important thing is that the approach we took. We basically looked at youth unemployment as a wicked problem. A wicked problem is a problem that, such as climate change, it's socially complex. It suffers from many interdependencies and multiple causes, has no single solution, and is perceived differently by different stakeholders because they have different agendas. There's a lot of research around wicked problems, and the key message is how to best tackle them is to take a very collaborative approach engage with all stakeholders, get them all around the table. In our case, that would be academia, policymaker, and industry, and civil society, and create a common vision and narrative. And that was the key approach, which led us to the framework that guided us through exploring what we would find out there. So we used the lens. So framework we used is the triple HELIX, which has been further developed into the quadruple HELIX to include civil society, and the quintuple HELIX to include sustainability. As Professor Riccaboni was stating, maybe a fourth vision, very interesting, I think. But for simplicity, we kept now here in the illustration with the three spheres: academia, industry, and government. Traditionally, we can say that these three spheres were quite separate. Academia was viewed more as a support structure for innovation, providing trained persons, research results, and knowledge to industry. Now, the change we have been seeing, and this is what the triple helix theorizes, is that in a knowledge-based society, the boundaries between the different spheres are fading and giving rise to a system of overlap. You can see how slowly these spheres are overlapping, and you see how the knowledge flows dynamically in all directions, creating an innovative environment. So the higher education institutions or academia become a source of new knowledge and technology, the industry, the center of production, and government provides an enabling environment, very important, providing, for instance, incentives, platforms, autonomy. By co-creating and intertwining common interest, values, strategies, investment narratives, there's a connective issue that is created, which together becomes together these three players become the motor of innovation and thus employment. Now, academia in this is seen as a key driver of change, ideally suited to connect the different dots. Why? Also, it's impartial, it's driven by curiosity, and by long-term perspectives. But at the same time, I think it's really, really important to reflect on how to best support academia in living up to that role. I think we all know that over the past 20 years, academia has been faced with an increasing number of demands, which in some cases leads to the impossibility actually to respond to all demands. So what we can also see that often academic institutions symbolically adhere to something, but at the same time they have conflict. So there is some decoupling going on. So I think it's very, very important to be aware that academia is sufficiently supported. So what we try to do in the publication is that we look, while maintaining the focus on academia, we try to look at all three spheres and look at how each of the three spheres can contribute to solving the complex issue. Only if all three spheres work together is there going to be progress. And I think we can see that a lot of literature actually claims that there has been little progress in youth unemployment in the region over the past 20 years. So I think this is a renewed call for action, something needs to change. Sometimes we do that in forms of tables. You see academia, industry, policymakers. So you find that throughout the whole book. In terms of the methodology, I think I don't need to go further into that. Giuseppe already talked about it. But just to say, it was an immense mapping exercise in terms of literature review. I think we reviewed 1,350 publications, 140 are cited. We mapped 146 initiatives, of which 65 enter into the handbook, and I'm I'm glad to say that any of the initiatives that I mentioned beforehand by the previous speakers are actually mentioned in the handbook. So the themes that were then emerged out of the overall number of themes are 11 themes that you see here, with a focus on 2 specific themes: collaborative doctorates and partnerships for innovation. And let me just quickly go and share. Okay, you can see that, right? Giuseppe, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I'm not gonna, it was supposed to be a small publication, short publication, 60 to 80 pages. We ended up with 160 pages. We could not resist. We just felt that we couldn't give enough meat around the bone with 60 pages. So I will just give you here an impression. You know, we know that by research that after 11 lines, you lose people. So we try to really work with many boxes, explaining terminology, identifying key success factors, drawing out data specifically. And you see here the best practice cases also, introducing some of the, some really key important things that we draw out here. And I invite you to explore that. I think we don't need to do much more here. And yeah, so we tried, of course, to have good contents, but also layout it attractively so we wouldn't lose readers. Let me go back to the presentation. So yes, so I think what we learned, and that is important, and Professor Di Carboni also mentioned some of these. First of all, I think it is impressive to see how many initiatives are out there. And I've worked in this field around the Mediterranean for quite a few years, but I wasn't aware there weren't so many. So the information is highly fragmented. And I think there is, this publication is certainly a first step, but more can be done. There is a high demand for people that have ambidexterity, so 2 right arms, basically being able to work in the different spheres and building bridges between them, being able to function in the different logics. There is a lack of relevant data. We worked really hard to find the data that you will see in this publication. I think there is a lot of extra room to do more in the future. And it starts from very simple things like tracer studies with alumni, for instance, but to also more macro indicators as to higher education. I think another really important point is to explore the motivations of business to engage with higher education. That is something we heard a lot in our conversations. There is a lot of doubts around that, and I think that is an area there is not a lot of information or material, and that is why I think a forum like this one, where increasingly business is being brought in, are really important. I think as to sharing the handbook, I think it's important to keep in mind the triple, quadruple, and quintuple HELIX to really see, because all of you here around the table can play a role in this. Giuseppe I think UfM will be sharing this presentation afterwards, so please support. And we look forward to feedback from everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina. This has been, again, a collective effort, but you've done an amazing job on this. Now, we're running a bit late on schedule, but it was important also to understand in detail what was behind this publication, also to facilitate uptake and participation by all the participants. Now let's move to one of the most interesting part of this e-meeting, which is the roundtable. It is when we try to build this roundtable, we wanted to take different kind of perspective, also different kind of stakeholders, but in a way we wanted to contribute to this complementarity between different pieces of the puzzle, which are then put together through this triple helix. So I wanted to invite virtually on the floor our panelists. We have Dr. Riam Kanso, which is the CEO of Conception X. A new, we may call it probably a startup, which is focusing on connecting researchers with the startup world in a way, with training more in details, acquiring techniques. And is doing an amazing work in the UK. Then we have Dr. Marcello Scalisi, who is the director of Unimed. Unimed is one of our key partners, being one of the main university networks active in the Mediterranean, active since a long time. And we are currently collaborating also for a study on mobility, but we've also been working in many other fields. And then we have Dr. Boutein Al-Assadi from BusinessMed, which I think is going to bring one of the most interesting, let's say, point of view, because he's talking from the perspective of businesses, of chambers of commerces, and employers associations. So in a way, they are all complementary, and we're looking forward to this discussion. But let me start with Dr. Riam Kanso. I would like to ask her more or less that we know that it may be difficult in a way when we focus on researchers, on students that want to go for a research career, it may be difficult to see how they could fit then into the world of business in a way. So I wanted to ask you, what are you doing? How are you contributing to, in a way, facilitating this passage between these two worlds? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Hello. Sorry, my internet connection stopped a while back, so I'm glad that now. Can you all hear me properly? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Riam, and actually, despite the fact that I've been living in the UK for the last 13 years, I actually grew up in Beirut, and I studied at the American University of Beirut. So it's lovely to be here at this roundtable today. Today, I just want to talk to you very quickly about the work that we're doing at Conception X. So Conception X is a venture program and platform that helps PhD students launch ventures based on their research in deep technology. We define deep technology as a technology based on original research conducted at the university level. I think this is really relevant to the discussion that we're having today, because we're really more about the future of work and employability, and what employability actually means as we go forward over the next 50, 100 years. And we're focusing on venture because entrepreneurship really has been sometimes taken by a very Silicon Valley narrative, and we're trying to bring it back to the public sector and what it means for PhDs to become inventors and work with industry. Now, I did have a very small number of slides, so I don't know if I still have time to present them, given that we're running a bit behind. It's up to you, Giuseppe.
We can go quickly through it.
Okay, fine. So I'm just going to share a little bit about what we do here. 1 second. All right, so this is my slide deck. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is Conception X, and what we're a platform that leverages top PhD talents to build deep tech startups and solve ambitious industry challenges. We first launched in 2018 in partnership with University College London, where I used to be head of student entrepreneurship and engineering. Since then, we've made it an independent, not-for-profit. And I think what's relevant today is that COVID actually forced us to adopt a fully online model for our system. And what this means is that there's space and geography have started to mean less. So over the last couple of months, we've had our first 2 PhD teams raise venture capital investment on Zoom, which is not something that you would have heard of before. This is a 9-month program. And what we do is that we focus on people who are already researching deep science and technology, and we help them commercialize their research by working with the university. These are some of the areas we've worked on. You can see more case studies on our website, conceptionx.org. So far, we have supported over 200 venture scientists. You will note that we're using the term venture scientists instead of entrepreneur. And I think because entrepreneur has a very different connotation, for us, these are scientists who are building ventures. And this kind of terminology is really resonating with our PhDs. So far, our PhDs have raised upwards of £7 million in capital. I don't know, that's maybe under 8 million euros. But not all of them are raising venture capital investment. A lot of them are also working with clients such as Eagle Labs, Deloitte, and Microsoft and Google and all the others. I'm just going to very quickly give you a case example about this in the interest of time. So Raco.ai is one of our companies that we created in quantum machine learning. They came as 4 PhD students, and we made them into a team. We helped them with partnerships with Microsoft, NVIDIA. They raised capital, and now they've established a 3-year relationship with Merck. So, through our platform, kind of working with these top industry players. So we're really about the future of education and about the products and services that will be ready 5 years from now. So I'm just going to make a very few comments about the thing that I've just said. I think it's important to see that what we've built here is not yet another incubator or accelerator. We look at, this is one step earlier. It's a program that's about venture education that sits on top of PhDs and help people commercialize whilst they're still studying. We've designed it so that students don't need to take time off their PhD to actually do it. And this has been hugely popular and also quite a good opportunity, because if they fail at building a startup or a company, they can go back to their PhD and they would have tried at low risk. So in reality, when people do Conception X, they have 3 possible outcomes. The first is building startups and ventures. The second is working with industry players. And the third is that they simply become more upskilled scientists, and then they go back to the lab and they become better at gaining innovation grants, whether it's from Horizon 2020 or feasibility grants or things like that. So everybody benefits. We see ourselves as an education transformation piece. And I'm just going to end this introduction to the program with the reason why we set up Conception X, because we're an independent not-for-profit and we don't take equity. And we're really about, public sector innovation. The first is that the smart people, the PhDs who are building these technologies, they're some of the smartest people in the world, and they're the workforce of the future. And it's our job to give them more options and employability and helping them facilitate these connections with industry players and otherwise. The second reason is that the world has some really big problems in climate and health and finance and connectivity. And I think we need to look at new ways of solving these problems and not necessarily having the same players attempt to solve them every time. And the third reason why we set up Conception X is simply because it's about the roles of university and what it means to do a PhD in the future. Sometimes people spend 3, 4, 5 years, write a thesis, no one reads it, and then they go to work for Goldman Sachs. So in our model, we're trying to bring back incubation to the university and look at the university as the incubator. And, by being on this panel today and all of my fellow panelists, I think, COVID has been a terrible tragedy for the world, but it has made us rethink business models. Right now, for example, one of my PhD students in the University of Newcastle could be mentored by an industry player based in Italy, for example, and people are raising capital and money is moving around. So we've established a concept that works in the UK, and now I'm very open to having discussions to collaborate elsewhere as well, and with everybody here. So that's my part, and sorry for my disconnection earlier.
Thank you. It's actually a great example of a best practice that could be replicated in or joined into the Mediterranean area. And it's also a way of showcasing this kind of interconnections and how to actively support researchers into become the power of their own economies, basically of bringing the future of work forward. So I think it was a very interesting takeaway, different from the others, but complementary to them. Now let's move again back to the Mediterranean. We have the Dr. Marcello Scalisi from Unimed that is going to bring the experience, his experience coming with being in contact daily with the universities. Marcello, we know that universities, we have a lot of expectations from them. We always ask more and more from them, but we also need to avoid a bit this kind of overload of duties that we want to assign them. So what do you think is the perspective of universities here? How can we support them? And what is UNIMED doing in this field? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe, for this introduction and for these questions. And first of all, I have to thank Union for Mediterranean, of course, the Secretary General, first of all, and Madame Ben Abdallah for the work that you are doing, and also the commitment in our cooperation. As you already said, that we are doing this study on the internationalization of Southern Mediterranean universities and looking at the mobility perspective first, but generally speaking, on the importance of this internationalization dimension for our region, looking at higher education institutions. The topic of employability and entrepreneurship, obviously, as you said, is very sensitive for universities for several reasons. And as has been said several times, obviously, we are talking about the region, but there are several differences among countries in this perspective. But we can say that is, on one side, one way, common priorities for both sides of the Mediterranean. The rates of unemployability issues are everywhere in Southern Europe and Southern Mediterranean countries. And this is the reason why UNIMED is trying to cooperate among our members, not discussing about how to transfer capacity, but how to work together, how to join our efforts to be able to find solution for this important issue. UNIMED has been mentioned several times during this presentation, also in the publication. I had a look briefly to the publication. There are several projects of UNIMED. And I have to say that, first of all, the activity that we do through projects remain an important issue, because through projects we try to do concrete things for our region, for our members, and so on. And I would like to summarize briefly the work that we are doing, and in particular what we consider a priority to address employability issues and entrepreneurship through some keywords. First of all, we have to discuss and to improve, as been also called by the Secretary General, this idea of a Mediterranean generation. We need not only an Erasmus program dedicated to Mediterranean students that already exist, because the Erasmus Plus program opened the door for the mobility for Southern Mediterranean students, but the numbers are not so relevant at the moment. I hope, and we hope, that the next Erasmus Plus program will open the door for more mobility scheme. But mobility remain an important issue, because as we very well tested in European side, through mobility we create a sort of European citizenship. I think that could be the same if we are able to invite more and more students to study and to visit the region, and to try to use our differences as richness, and to try to invite our students to better understand our differences. This is, I think, for the long-term perspective, the first point. How to improve this Mediterranean generation, how to give them opportunity for mobility, for international competencies and so on. To do that, we did a project called Dear Med, which was a very nice project, also mentioned in your publication. We tested also the South-South mobility scheme that remain an important task. I kindly invite UfM to consider how to improve the South-South mobility scheme, because it is the first point to have a regional integration. And also we launched a petition to invite the European Commission to pay more attention to this mobility framework for Southern Mediterranean students. Another key issue that was mentioned from my friend and colleague Angelo Riccaboni is the importance of partnership. We have two levels of this importance from our perspective. First of all, partnership among universities. This is our daily job. As UNIMED, we try to support as much as possible our members. At the moment, we have 130 universities from 23 countries. And in particular, looking at employability and entrepreneurship, we created a sub-network where around 30 universities from 11 countries are working together. I think that is one important issue, inviting universities to cooperate on these issues, to try to exchange practice, to try to understand what is possible to do working together. But of course, as has been mentioned, the cooperation with government, business organization, and civil society organization is an important issue to achieve the idea that university, looking at our perspective, of course, has to open the door, finally, to cooperation with the society at large. We have to consider that university play a political role in their own society. On this, an important task, and I will try to conclude my brief intervention, is the topic has been mentioned of the societal engagement, the social responsibility of university. And this is also related to another important task and an important priority for the region, the lack of autonomy. I mean, for the university system. We need a stronger governance system for higher education, a stronger autonomy, more independence for the education system, able to take on their own responsibility on different challenges, of course, and of course, employability is one of these. This means that we have to improve the quality of governance, we have to improve the quality of our education, and we have to improve the cooperation among Ministry of Higher Education, of course, Minister of Labor, and this looking at employability, and their education system, but asking to every of these actors to play their own role. And the other point, just to react to the presentation of Riam, thanks Riam for your introduction, for your presentation of your initiative, is the role of doctoral education. Is extremely important. We have to change the perspective. We have to go to a more professionalization of doctoral education, because it's impossible to consider that all the PhD students remain at university. They have to go into the society. They have to be able to invest their competencies at large. And to do that, for instance, we are cooperating with a very nice and small organization, but very active, which is Pride, which is an association to improve professionalization of doctoral education. And on this, we are organizing on 9 December a workshop to invite our members to consider how to consider doctoral education in a different perspective. I stop here at the moment. Thank you again, but of course, I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Actually, you mentioned several topics which are incredibly interesting, and actually they are mentioned in our handbook, so you're also giving a perfect introduction to them. Just a quick data that we found is that just slightly more than half of the PhD students actually wish to remain into the universities. I think it's 56%, but you can check it in the publication. And this is why, first of all, we wanted to find some best practices of how to put using this power, let's say the force of creation, of innovativity for connecting the higher education institutions and the private sector. And this is why one of the focus chapters is exactly on collaborative doctorates, where we have seen that the Mediterranean is doing something, should be doing more. So we wanted to highlight what's already working in the field. There are many other best practices, but for sure it's one of the fields where we should be doing more. And I would like also to underline this message that mobility, the good lesson coming from Erasmus, can contribute to build a feeling of belonging to citizenship, which will be extremely useful and important to develop more in the Mediterranean. Now, last but not least, I'm sorry, Butena, but there is a lot of expectation coming from the private sector you're seeing. So Butena Al-Assad is an expert and is working from a business med, and they bring the voice and the visions from the Employers Association of the Mediterranean. So they know very well the point of view of the companies that actually we keep on calling to work more with them. But from the other perspective, what do the companies, the business, the industry needs to see more in the higher education institution for collaborating with them? What are the barriers, but also what ways forward do you see? What topics do you suggest? So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, it's kind of challenging to be the last speaker because of the time constraint, but I'll try to be brief. So basically, so many interesting topics have been discussed today. So I wish we had more time to discuss all that. But basically, my intervention, I would like to talk about three things to be able to tackle private sector engagement in this triple helix model. So first of all, I would like to comment on the triple helix. Second, I'm going to give an example of the career development centers as a good example of private sector engagement. And also I would like to briefly comment on the inequality issue in education and how there is a risk of developing what we call a two-speed system. So first of all, I would like to thank UfM Higher Education and Research Unit team, and in particular Giuseppe and Mrs. Aitaf for their kind invitation. I'm really glad to be part of this roundtable and learn more about this significant piece of work. Second, I would like to congratulate you for this insightful handbook for academia, industry, and policymakers. In my opinion, the book really touched upon the salient issues related to the employability of young graduates in the Mediterranean region, and really highlighted the important role that the government, the private sector, and the academia should play in order to improve the employability of young graduates from the tertiary education. So I would like to start by commenting on the triple helix robustness to deal with this complex issue, which is the unemployment and the employability of tertiary graduates in the southern Mediterranean countries in particular, and take a moment to assess the situation of the major three players in the triple helix. It seems that from what we read and what we see and what we discover, that each helix, if we want to call them, is facing structural challenges. So the academia helix, and as some of the speakers mentioned, is dealing with issues related to university autonomy, the governance, the quality management, the quality assurance, the infrastructure, the budget cuts, the quality of teachers and researchers. And these are really very major issues that need to be dealt as soon as possible to allow the academia helix to be very engaged in this process of working collaboratively with the two other helix to tackle the issue of unemployment and employability of graduates. The second helix, which is the government, well, taken into consideration, of course, the post-Spring Arab uprising context, the government helix in southern Mediterranean countries is caught up into political turbulence. It seems that there is a lack of political will to undergo fundamental reforms. There is also a lack of collaboration between major ministries. One of the speakers talked about a very important collaboration between ministries like Ministry of Education, Vocational Education and Training, Tertiary, Employment, Social Affairs, ICT. So steering committees that are engaged in this process of tackling the issue of employability and employment of graduates need to be gathered and need to be composed of stakeholders or key actors coming from these different perspectives. And together they can build a shared vision to be able to tackle this issue in a very practical manner. The third helix that you coined, industry or the private sector, of course, is in a very bad shape, especially well globally, but especially in the southern Mediterranean region. It's a sector that is facing a dire economic situation with a pandemic that is disrupting the supply and demand, a global recession, challenges of the fourth industrial revolution and what it brings as globalization, automation, use of technology. In addition to the challenges of the informal economy and what it brings as hidden and unsustained jobs. So, and we know that although, or if we exclude the jobs coming from the public sector, more than 80% of jobs are coming from the micro and small and medium enterprises. But these enterprises are facing many hurdles. They are unable to access to finance. They are unable to identify qualified workforce, not because only they don't exist, but because they don't know how to do it. There is a difference, because when you talk about skill gap, we also talk about some HR experts who don't know how to do things sometimes. The private sector is also unable to grow and become more competitive and create jobs because it's a fragile sector that is trying to deal with significant internal organizational weaknesses, which further hinder their growth and competitiveness. So the situation of the triple helix in the southern Mediterranean countries is kind of fragile, and we need to really look into ways to strengthen and make it more robust, so that we can, so that it can tackle this complex issue, which is the unemployment and the employability of young graduates. So in order to reach the ultimate effect of the triple helix, as it is nicely exposed in the handbook, I think it is urgent to look into ways to improve the capacity of each helix to become an active player in this complex endeavor. Which approach to tackle or to use in order to build the capacity of academia, of the private sector and the government, and in this process? I don't think it's going to be a top-down one. Bottom-up will be more efficient and more effective, because it will be demand-driven, and it will certainly better calibrate the coordination between the three main players. A bottom-up approach will be mainly the initiative taken by intermediary actors, mainly community services organization and business services organization, who can play a pivotal role in the ecosystem. They can implement donors-funded projects. They can leverage their interventions by scaling them up across the country, using their informal network. Now I go to my second point, which is taking the example of career development centers in Tunisia, which was listed actually as a best practice in the handbook. So although career development centers have been used as a solution to bridge the gap or increase this dialogue between the private sector and academia, and create this or supply the labor market with the right qualified workforce. In some countries, there are interesting experiences to talk about, like the one in Tunisia, but in some other countries like Jordan or Morocco, the experiences are kind of limited, and we can list more weaknesses than strength in applying this solution to bridge the gap between academia and private sector. So taking the example of career development centers in Tunisia, because I was closely involved in this project from its inception phase to its upskilling or upscaling, sorry, phase, and then to its sustainability and donor exit phase. I think this project is a good example of ultimate triple helix collaboration. The project was initiated by donors that funded the inception phase and all what it takes, from capacity building of career center staff, design the manual of procedure, drafting the decree to legalize the centers, led the dialogue with the private sector and the Ministry of Higher Education, developed communication and outreach strategy, and of course, most importantly, linking up private sector with career development sectors. At the inception stage, the project started with 12 career centers, and now we have 160 career centers across the country. Almost every single higher education institution has one. Of course, they have different degrees of activity or experience, and they are all involved in this dynamic of bringing the private sector on campus, organizing job fairs, involving experts from the private sector in organizing workshops, in coaching the graduates, in assessing or sitting in students' thesis, in giving some feedback about curriculum development. So there is a dynamic on campus that has been led by the career development centers. Of course, this model is successful because, first of all, it was led by a donor that had as an objective to bring together the three players: private sector, government, and the academia. It was also successful because the government at some point legalized these structures, and not only legalized the structures and gave a key role to those who are involved in these career centers, but also provided a competitive loan scheme through a World Bank loan to allow career centers to develop themselves internally and become sustainable and scale up their activities. So there are many ways that were implemented to sustain the model. And I think this is one of the key success to career center models in the Tunisian context. The third point that I wanted to make is, or before, yes, very briefly. Yes, so very briefly, but I wanted to go back to the private sector engagement and say that as far as it is a win-win situation, as far that we can create a value proposition where we show to the private sector partner that we are here to support in the development of the workforce, in developing the internal structure of the company, in providing and supplying the right skilled workforce. I think the private sector will be listening and will be happy to collaborate in many ways at the academia level. So I think I will have to stop here because I think I took more than my time. And if we have another chance to comment, then I will talk about the inequality issue. Thank you, Giuseppe.
Thank you very much. Actually, you said it was difficult to present after all these topics, but I see that you had a lot of very interesting points to make, starting with the lack of coordination, which is unfortunately something that impacts at all levels in all countries, but also within the same institution. So the lack of coordination should be something we should need to foster more and more. This is at the essence of what we call the triple helix, is connective issue supporting together communication. Also the point on the bottom-up approach, I mean, which means also a way of unleashing the power of civil societies in proposing initiative, in taking up approaches in single universities, starting their own initiative and then looking for institutional support. I see that we are a bit late of time, but still I would like to pose a very, very, very quick question. Let's say a 30 seconds, a 1 minute question to all the participants. So if you can answer with a tweet, let's say it will be the best, but I think it will be interesting to hear after all these proposals, after all these ideas, and also after all identifying these barriers. I want to hear like a reflection from you all to the point, how would you suggest that we can foster a change of step, a change of pace, for fostering a change of mentality, for allowing more communication and cooperation within the triple helix? So I would say we can start with our first speaker, Riam, and then we move to Marcello, then to Buteina. The floor is yours. Brief.
Okay, given that everything I do focuses on education and venture education, I would think that with the students and with the PhDs start early by kind of expanding their mindset. And the next step is to maybe start with universities that have a more liberal policy with intellectual property and involve industry players who are very interested in these skill sets from the very beginning. That's my 30 seconds.
Thank you. Marcello?
Thank you, Giuseppe. I have to say that listening all political debate in every country, we listen that education is a top priority. But once we have looked to investment in education, unfortunately, it's not a priority. And this is the same, I have to say, in every Southern Mediterranean countries and also in the Euro-Mediterranean cooperation framework in the bilateral dimension, but also the regional dimension. I think that on one side, we need that university play a major role. They have to be more responsible on this international perspective, looking at employability, but also looking at all the other priorities following SDGs, and insist on this, that the university, through networks like UNIMED, but not only, they have to consider as important they are, and not just waiting the government that offers something, but on the other side, for sure, we need more resources for the mobility scheme, for the cooperation, international cooperation framework, for research. In particular, research is a key issue that unfortunately is not so strong in the Euro-Mediterranean perspective, and so on. Both sides, I think, that important. Our responsibility, first of all, as university people, but on the other side, we need that governments play a major role. And on this, the role of UNIM for Mediterranean and it's extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you. Buteina?
I think one important element is to raise awareness of the upcoming future of jobs, and to higher education, to public higher education institutions. It's very important to be aware that future of jobs is very imminent, and it has been accelerated with the pandemic, and the digitalization is already here. And this will, if we don't work on this by upskilling and reskilling our graduates and our adults and our youth, then this gap is going to be even larger. And we will see also a problem of inequality because private education is booming at all levels, primary, secondary, vocational, and tertiary. And if we don't do anything about our public educational institutions at all levels, then this gap is going to be enlarged, but there will be always the second option, which is the private sector, the private education. But we know that southern Mediterranean countries in particular cannot afford for everybody these good private schools and universities.
Thank you to everybody. I think that you brought different perspectives, different points, and helped us to paint this picture of communication, which is needed more and more from all of the stakeholders. I just wanted to underline a couple of points. You've been talking extensively, so there is no need for me to repeat what you've been saying. Just that, of course, as Marcello especially was mentioning, we need to make more and more the point, but also, like everybody said, that higher education institutions, universities, research centers can contribute really to the future of their own countries and of the region. First of all, employability helps sustain the economic inclusion, the participation of the young citizens of the Mediterranean in their economies, and innovation is a key contributor for having a more sustainable and inclusive growth in the Mediterranean. Also, COVID is impacting severely all of us, but at the same time, so also bringing the opportunity for building back better, to putting our region really at the moment of truth between a path like going back to the normal way or using this opportunity for innovating our ways. For this, universities really need to be part of this discussion because they can be, first of all, the place where ideas are born like bubbles, then explode into society, but also because they are installed in the local areas, so have the power of acting as transformative powers for societies. Then what is very difficult here to achieve is this interconnection, this connective tissue, which is between higher education institutions, policymakers, and then the industry to the other side, because everyone has its own logic of working, but if we manage to support the creation of this dialogue, we can really help each other and to go ahead. For this, we need to create a community of practice. We are here today as a testament that there is the interest from all of us, from international institutions to university networks, to startups, to the private sector, to create this community that can discuss between each other how to create new activities, new actions, and to try to foster transformative change in our region. I thank all of you, especially thank all the participants that have stayed with us until the very end, which means that probably the topic was interesting. I invite all of you to download the publication. We thank again the consultant for the incredible work of preparation. Everybody that has contributed to this publication is also extremely thankful for their great input that have also helped us to change really a lot of our points based on your feedback, also based on the selection. We thank, of course, the GIZ for the support it has given throughout the initiatives. Of course, we thank also our colleagues that have helped us manage this event, all the participants. The interpreters have done an amazing work, and Itaf, you want to say a final word?
Merci Giuseppe, juste pour remercier tous les participants et d'insister sur qu'il y aura une continuation de notre forum d'aujourd'hui parce que l'année prochaine, espérons qu'on pourrait, c'est-à-dire en présentiel, organiser un forum régional autour de cette thématique, mais également il y aura 2 formations à l'échelle nationale dans 2 pays du Sud. Ça sera une formation en Tunisie et une formation en Jordanie. Vous serez tous conviés et nous serons honorés par votre présence. Nous avons appris beaucoup de vous aujourd'hui et espérons qu'on va continuer à travailler ensemble parce que je crois que les mots d'ordre, c'est the partnership, intégration pour le futur de cette génération méditerranéenne. Merci à vous encore. Et merci encore à GIZ, parce que c'est grâce à eux qu'on a pu organiser aujourd'hui, que ce soit la publication ou le forum d'aujourd'hui. Oui, oui, bien sûr. Giuseppe, elle insiste pour que je dise je remercie les speakers. Mais je remercie déjà les speakers, Giuseppe.
Thank you very much and have a pleasant continuation of your day. Thank you. Bye.